Going live. Yes, very good. Okay, awesome. So, welcome to this live lesson. Again, like I said, I am Andrea, and I hope you're having a good day wherever you are, or a good evening. Today, I want to give you a lesson on verbs, basically. And the verbs that we're going to talk about are kind of a special group of verbs. In English, we have verbs of action and verbs of state, and we have to treat them a little bit differently when we use them in the continuous. So we're going to talk about that today, okay? I'll give you some examples, and then after, you will be able to see the presentation on my Facebook page, as well as in the English Everywhere community Facebook group, which you are welcome to join. Also, I will post the presentation and the video on my webpage, englisheverywhere.org, and there will be practice exercises there. So if you would like to practice active and stative verbs, go to my webpage and register, and you will have free access to some practice lessons online. Okay? Great. So let's start. I'm just going to transition here so you can see the presentation. I'll go back and forth. Okay? So here we go. We're talking about active and stative verbs. And what are they? What's the difference? Let's see. So, first, what are verbs? And we know that verbs are action words, correct? For example, when we talk about nouns, we know that nouns are a person, a place, or a thing, correct? And we know that adjectives describe nouns. So verbs are actually action words. And if you look here, you'll see that we have a list of action words. We have eat, talk, drive, swim, watch, and sleep. So those are all verbs. They're all action words. Some of them are more active than others. For example, swim is a more active action word than sleep, for example. One of my favorite things to do. But even though sleep does not seem like you're being very active, it's still an action, even though it's a very chill action. Okay? So verbs are action words. And verb tenses tell us when an action happened. Okay? So it's the tense of the verb, the time, that tells us when an action happens. So verbs do two things in English. They tell us what the action is and when the action happened. For example, we'll use the verb talk. Okay? Talk. So if we have a sentence like, I talk to my best friend every day, we know that this is the present simple. And we know that it's the present simple, number one, because of the verb talk, and also because of the word every day. Every day is what we call a time marker, and it helps us to know when an action is happening. So every day is an action that happens all the time. It's a fact. And since it happens all the time, it's a fact, it's a daily routine or a habit, then it's the present simple. Yeah? I talk to my best friend every day. I talked to my best friend yesterday. So in this example, we know that it's the past simple for two reasons. One, because talk is now talked with the ed at the end, and we know that's the past simple. And the word yesterday. Again, yesterday is a time marker. So it tells us when the action happened. So there are two things in this sentence that help us know it's the past simple. And we know that past simple are actions that happened in the past that are completed, finished, over, done. Yeah? So I talked to my best friend yesterday. That's the past simple. Another example is I'm talking to my best friend now. And that's the present continuous. And again, we know that it's the present continuous because of two things. One, the verb, I am talking. And we know that the present continuous is the verb to be in the present and the gerund form of the verb. Talking, ing, is the gerund form of the verb. So to be in the present plus talking in the gerund form is the present continuous. We also know that it's the present continuous because of the time marker now. Yeah? So the time markers in these three sentences are every day, yesterday, and now. And that helps us know the time when the action happened, whether it's the present simple, past simple, or the present continuous. So if we use the example, I'm talking to my best friend now, which we know is the present continuous, we know that the present continuous describes a temporary action or an action happening in the moment. And we only use active verbs in the continuous form. Okay? So I know this, a lot of times when you're first learning English, they give you the information in sort of small, easy to understand groups of information. So when you first learn in the first year of studying English, when you first learn the difference between the present simple and the present continuous, they don't tell you about this active and stative stuff because it's too much information. But I think it's a good idea to know this earlier rather than later because it will help you. And it's not a difficult rule. It's just a rule that you have to remember. Okay? A lot of people don't normally make this mistake. Only when they are translating from their original language into English do you sometimes hear this mistake. Yeah? But I think that this is a good rule to know from like intermediate, low intermediate level up to advanced because it will help you. And it's, like I said, it's not very difficult because you learn the present continuous in the beginning, right? The first year you're studying or second year you're studying. So all you have to do remember is that some verbs you can't use in the continuous. And when we use the present continuous, again, we're talking about something that's happening right now in the moment. For example, I am talking to you. Or it's something that's happening, it's a temporary action. Yeah, like we are visiting my aunt. So maybe you're not doing it right now, but it's only going to be for a short time, one day or something like that. Okay? So we're talking about the continuous when we talk about active and stative. The continuous, not the present simple, not the past simple, not the present perfect, none of those other verb tenses. The only one we have to worry about is the continuous, okay? And that goes for the present and the past, both, okay? So, moving on. So, active verbs. They are verbs of action. Active is an adjective and action is a noun. So here are some examples of active verbs. We have talk, walk, read, write, eat, and sleep. So all of those are active verbs, verbs of action. Stative verbs. they're a little different. They are verbs of state, which is another way of saying verbs of being. So an action we know is something physical, yeah? Where a state is more a feeling or a way of being. So these are more, I guess you would say, more temporary, or they're not as physical as active verbs. They're verbs of state, verbs of being. So some examples are seem, cost, believe, prefer, need, and understand. So those are verbs that are examples of verbs of state. And what does that mean? That means that these verbs are not used in the continuous form. Okay? So you would never hear someone say, "Oh yeah, I am understanding you." No. Okay? And you would never hear someone say, "My new car is costing $20,000. No. Never in the continuous. In fact, when you hear it, it should actually sound kind of strange to you. Yeah? Because we never say this in English. You never hear someone say, "I am understanding." So when you do hear it, it should kind of set off an alarm. Ding, 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 ding. That's wrong, basically, because no one ever says that. And if they do, it's incorrect. Okay? So this is the difference between active verbs and stative verbs. Okay? I'll give you some more examples. For example, the 5 senses. Yeah? The 5 senses. We have an eye, an ear, a finger, a tongue, and a nose. The 5 senses are see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. So generally speaking, and again, this is kind of, it depends a little bit on the context, but generally speaking, we don't use these verbs in the continuous except the word touch. Okay? So you might hear someone say, "Oh yeah, I'm tasting the food." Or "I'm smelling the flowers," right? Because the action is happening there in the moment. But you would never hear someone say, "Ooh, her perfume is smelling really good." No, smells, the present simple. Or you would never hear someone say, "These tacos are tasting delicious." No, taste delicious. Okay? So you can sometimes use these verbs in the continuous, but it's only for a specific situation. The rest of the time, they are the present simple. The only verb that's the exception is the verb touch. Touch you can use in the continuous, no problem, because that's really a physical thing, right? Smelling and tasting, hearing and seeing, those are also physical actions. But because English is so wonderful, the exception is that you use them in the present simple most of the time. Yeah? If not, it has to be a very specific situation. So here are 4 exceptions to the rule. The first is think. For example, I think, let me go back for a second. There we go. I think that's a good idea. And so we say that in the present simple when we want think to mean believe. Okay? Believe. I think that's a good idea. I believe that's a good idea. They mean the same thing. Thinking we can use in the continuous when we're talking about using our minds to consider something, right? So I'm thinking about looking for a new job. So I'm considering, or I'm using my brain, using my mind to think about looking for a new job. You would never say, I believe, or I'm believing about looking for a new job. No. I'm considering, or I'm using my mind. So think actually changes meaning when you're talking about whether it's believe or it's actually using your mind. So this is actually two different meanings for the verb think, depending on whether it's the present simple or it's the present continuous. Okay? The next exception is have. Yeah? Have. For example, she has an interesting life, which means she owns an interesting life. What would be another way to say own? I guess own is the only way you could really say that. She has an interesting life. She owns an interesting life. The interesting life belongs to her. Yeah? Whereas if we say he's having problems with his health, it means that's the experience he's having right now. It's temporary. Yeah? So the difference when we use have in the present simple, it means own or belong to. When we use it in the continuous, it changes meaning and it means experience. See. Now, see is one of the five senses, correct? So see changes meaning depending on whether it's used in the present simple or it's used in the present continuous. For example, I can't see very well. That means view with my eyes, yeah? Have vision. I can't see very well. In the present simple, view with eyes. In the present continuous, I'm seeing my parents tonight. That means meet with. So I'm seeing my doctor today, or I'm seeing my best friend later. That means I'm actually meeting. It doesn't just mean I'm looking at them with my eyeballs. It means I'm actually meeting with them. So again, see, depending on whether it's the present simple or it's the present continuous, changes meaning. In the present simple, it means to view with my eyes. And in the present continuous, it means to meet with someone. It can also mean, this is just a little aside, in the United States, I can't really speak for other countries, but I think maybe in England they might say it in Australia. I'm not sure. I don't live there, so I can't say. But I know in the United States, when two people are dating, they're going out and spending time together, and maybe they like each other, maybe it will become a relationship. We say here in the United States that they're seeing each other, right? So it doesn't mean looking at each other with their eyeballs, they're seeing each other. What it actually means is that they're having a relationship. It might not be very serious, but they go out, they spend time together. And when we say that in English in the United States, we say they're seeing each other, or I am seeing him, or she is seeing someone. It actually means dating, to date as well. So if you hear someone say, oh, I'm seeing her, it doesn't mean I'm actually looking at her with my eyes. It means, we're kind of having a relationship. Okay? And so our last exception is be. He is the new boss. That's a description. That's the normal use of the word be. It's to describe things. Yeah? So he is the new boss. But if we use be in the continuous, which does sound a little strange, it's for a very specific reason. And it's when someone is acting a certain way. So she is being difficult. Normally, she's really nice. She's great. But today, she is being difficult. So it means she is acting difficult. Okay? And this isn't in the sense of acting like in a play or in a movie. That's a different kind of acting. This is more acting, kind of outside of the way a normal person might act or might be. But it means in that specific situation the person is acting in a particular way. It doesn't mean like Shakespeare. just to make that clear, okay? So, why, for example, I don't know, maybe you saw I posted this in Facebook, I think it was yesterday, and I asked people, why is this incorrect? I'm loving it. I don't know, I'm sure you've probably seen this, McDonald's slogan that they have, I'm loving it. Well, there are two things wrong with this. First of all, the I should be capital, correct? Because it's the subject pronoun, and the subject pronoun I is always capitalized. But it also is using the verb love, which is a stative verb. It's also using the verb love in the continuous, which we do not do. Which we do not do in English. We don't say, I'm loving it, or I'm hating it, or I'm liking it. We just use it in the present simple. I love it. Okay? So, that is a good example. This is actually a great example of how you will see incorrect grammar a lot, actually, in when you hear native speakers talking. If you happen to live in a country where people speak English, you're studying or working overseas, you will hear people make grammar mistakes a lot. A lot. I'm sure you probably hear people make grammar mistakes in your native language a lot. This is a really good example of that. I'm loving it. So even though you see this mistake and you recognize that it's a mistake, I would not suggest using it. It doesn't sound good. I never say that, but I'm also an English teacher. But I feel it's my responsibility to make you aware of this, but I do not suggest that you incorporate it into your language because it's just not, it just doesn't sound very good. Yeah. And you will hear people say, oh my God, I'm loving this, or oh, I'm hating that, or whatever. I'm so wanting a new car. And it's wrong. It's incorrect. So I don't suggest that you incorporate it into your language, but being aware of it is great. It's really important. Yeah. So if you would like a copy of this presentation, it's a PowerPoint presentation. So if you would like a copy of it, like I said, you can go to englisheverywhere.org and sign up, and there you will find a copy of the lesson, live lesson, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, and free activities, free exercises that you can do online to practice the active and stative verbs. And you can also find a copy of this presentation, the video, as well as the PowerPoint on Facebook in my English Everywhere community group. I encourage you to join. We talk about interesting things in there, things that affect our lives, as well as grammar and language. But it's a really good place to ask questions about American culture or grammar or vocabulary, and it's also a good place to share your ideas. If you have ideas about what's happening in the world and how it's affecting us, it's a really good place to talk about that as well. It's a safe place, basically. So, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you found this information helpful. I will also post a list of, let me take a second here, because I thought that I put in this presentation a list of verbs, but I guess I forgot. Oh well. Okay. I will also add to this a list of some more stative verbs because there's a group you can understand them or you can remember them by group, and it's really helpful. So have a great day or night depending where you are, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson and that you will join the Facebook group, and happy learning.